Hello everybody, welcome to Red Tool House. In today's video, we're going to start building our paddock for farrowing. Those of you watching, you think, well, you've got a farrowing barn, but we're going to do something a little different this year, so come along. All right, so if you've been following the channel, you know we have our breeding cells there and there. And that's Squealy Dan. He's the one that took care of things. And Merida, she's just old and crotchety. She's hanging out up there. Anyway, so last time when we farrowed, we had a situation where are they? Yeah, so Noelle, the one that looks like a walking sausage, she kind of did a Kool-Aid Man impersonation on our farrowing barn up here on the hill. I had Noelle in one side, I had Pepper in one side and Noelle in the other, and they were going to farrow, and they were going to farrow the same day. But she decided she didn't want to be anywhere near anybody else. So she blasted through that. And what's crazy, the year before that, she was fine. Anyway, long story short, we're going to take the opportunity to use our greenhouse that's not being used this time of year. I'm going to make it a farrowing palace for Noelle. So she can come kick it here big time, have some hay, have some nice place to stretch out, have some flat ground. All I got to do is get her from there over to here, which means that's got to cross my main road where I do all my daily activities through here. So I can't build anything permanent for them to cross. So I got to build something makeshift or temporary, like a chute to separate the girls over here, or one girl over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fence out this area here with some hog panels, maybe some of the wooden panels that I've made to give her a little yard area to be in here. Put a lot of deep litter in it because they're due to farrow in January. But I also want to put a little electric around it, I believe. I'm toying with that, but I think I'm going to put a little electric in it just so if she decides to get uppity again, then maybe the electric will deter her from going through. All of our south wood lots, anything that's on this side of my road that goes up the center of the valley, are powered by the Energizer on the corner of the workshop here. So for me to get power across, of course, I either have to string something over or under or whatever the case may be. But the boar paddock, all the way, halfway back up the property, is actually powered by this Energizer right here that's on the proper side of the road. So here's the main transmission line. So I can just take a jumper off of that and simply come right around here behind my mulberry tree and run down some fence posts that I already have. There's actually some wire buried there. Buried in the grass, but I can energize that from this jumper. The question or concern that I have is I'm a little worried that this isn't very hot. So I could test right here, but for the sake of really seeing how bad this is, I want to go to the end of the line and put the Energizer tester on it and just see what we're getting. So come with me. So I'm up here at the boar pasture where Mongo's hanging out solo mio because he didn't make the cut this year for breeding, if you know what I mean. So if you look here on the map, you'll see we were down here. I was down at the beginning where our brooder is, where the Energizer's connected, and now we're all the way up here where the boar pasture is. And that single wire energizes that whole pasture, but comes down here, comes down my road, and actually terminates right here on the corner of the boar shelter. So it doesn't loop, which obviously I know that's probably something I should do, but it doesn't loop. So I'm going to put a tester on that and see what we've got as far as charge goes. Tester's been around the block once or twice, but it still works. Round out. All right, so I'm getting 1.1, that's not staying up there, but I'm getting 1.1 kilovolts, which is no bueno. Normally what I want is a minimum of 3 kilovolts, but the hotter the better, especially when we're dealing with boars. So if I'm going to use that same line, I got to figure out where all my grounds are coming in, and got a pretty good idea. But I'm going to go back to the start there, test there, and then maybe start working my way up and looking for obstructions. So in my experience with a fence this week, that if the boars wanted to get out, or if Mongo wanted to get out, it really wouldn't slow him down. Obviously, if you wanted to crash through it, it wouldn't slow him down either, but he would lose respect for it if he started testing it. But as I've said for years on this channel, if you make your pigs pasture the best place in the area to hang out, so food, shelter, and water, then they're less likely to want to split. They'll just hang out all the time. So this fence has probably been this weak for months, and we haven't had an issue, even though he can smell the ladies going into heat earlier this summer when he's just right here and he wouldn't bust out. He would get all crazy and stuff, but he wouldn't bust out. But let's see, we got to get this fence hotter. I don't want to put Noelle in a new spot and have a weak fence, because she could possibly test it, and I need her to respect it immediately. So the first thing I want to do in these situations, of course, is test right here where our main lead comes off. And if I had a super fancy tester, you know, the real nice ones, they actually show where your ground fault is and kind of give you an arrow direction that you can see ground's that way. Pretty much know it's that way. But we're going to start here and see what we're starting with. And then I want to show you a couple tricks that you can do right here at your Energizer to help make sure everything's copacetic before you go run all the way around your pasture. All right, so I'm getting 2.9 there, which ain't so great either, coming straight off the Energizer. So if you ever ask yourself, well, what's the best I can get from your specific Energizer, because not all Energizers are the same, of course, let me show you a trick. The first thing you want to do, of course, is unplug it. And then you want to disconnect your hot. Make sure you throw everything on the ground. And disconnect your ground. Then you're going to plug it back in. You put your ground on ground and put your two hot leads on the hot, and that should tell you your max. Okay, so on its best day, 9.6 is the max that this Energizer will put out. So that's kind of a good baseline to say, okay, how much can I get further upstream? So another thing you can do when you're right here at the Energizer, of course, is test your ground. So taking the same meter, put the ground pin in the ground, and go to your last ground rod. In this system, I have 3 ground rods. So I'm going to go to my last ground rod and see what it's reading. So that's 1.2. So there's actually more energy going into the ground at the ground rod than there is going all the way out the line. Now, usually like 1.1, 1.2, I don't stress out too much about that if I've got 3 and up on the actual line. But what that tells me is I need to improve my ground. So where all 3 of my ground cables are coming together, there's probably a little corrosion. Everything's galvanized, it gets crusty at times. So I could take those apart and clean them and probably improve that quite a bit. So obviously the next thing to do is go just walk the line or follow the line and see if I see anything that could be causing a ground out. And is there something obvious or something that's not obvious? So looking right here at the start where yeah, we got multiflora rows. It's actually something's broken the insulator off, probably a deer. We've got some sycamore. We got some autumn olive further up that are all just kind of leaning on the line. So that may have something to do with it, right? So this is why I always say when it comes time to do fence maintenance and those type of things, or when you're building your paddocks, make sure you've got a nice path or trail or a road for your side-by-side or tractor or whatever to go around and check all of your fence line without having to hit the hill. Now, unfortunately, I don't have that luxury on all my pastures. You get over here on the South Ridge and things get pretty hairy as you go up the mountain, not across the mountain. The boar pasture, I actually have a road all the way around it. And then this main line that goes up the creek, I can drive along it. So it'll be nice, I can keep all my equipment with me. If you can't have a side-by-side or a tractor or some device or some piece of equipment that's going to carry all your supplies for you, then maybe you want to put together a kit that you can throw in a backpack and take with you as you hit the hill. There's nothing more frustrating than walking all the way up the mountain and realizing, oh, I need a nail-in insulator, and I forgot my insulators. And you walk all the way down and get it, and you go back up, it's like, oh, I forgot to get the hammer, I forgot to get the screw gun. so having a kit prepared is important. So if I was going to have to hit the hill, then I'd have my backpack kit, but since I don't for the boar pasture, I'll just put my whole fence tote in here, which has spare wire, extra clips, all the different types of clips we have, extra ground wire, even an extra Energizer in here, new corners, my tensioner, tons and tons of sawdust. Even looks like there's maybe a baby mouse down there. So, yeah, we've got it all covered for whatever we need. Dang barn, we'll fire some barn kits. But if you're putting together a bag kit, then I would recommend a handful of your insulators. Obviously knowing what insulators you need, drill, hammer, screws, nails, whatever you use there. Maybe just a smaller roll of wire in case you have to do a splice or do a repair there. I usually maybe even carry a couple step-in posts, use them like walking sticks as they go along. But you're also, if you have a lot of woodlot, you're going to need a saw or something to take with you. Obviously in the side-by-side I carry my steel chainsaw so I can stop and cut. But one thing I usually always carry, grab it here, is a little folding saw. And I've had this one forever and broke the tip off of it, and I don't have to use it much, but it's really, really cheap. I think it's a Walmart special, but plastic handle. I ended up breaking the tip. It's got a little locking mechanism that sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, so you end up digging in too hard and you end up getting cracked across the knuckles with the blade. So it's subpar. So I think in Providence, some of these companies have seen me work with subpar, or just know that I handle subpar equipment sometimes, and reached out to me. So this company by the name of Lagom, they sent me what I consider to be a very, very nice handsaw, and this one is definitely going in the kit. So look at this bad boy. So it's got a locking mechanism, solid steel handle with a nice rubber grip on it, Teflon coated blade, so we're not going to have the dig-in issues. We're not going to have the issues there with getting pinched too much. And what's funny is you look at the quality of steel. I don't know if that's going to show up, but look at the thickness of one blade versus the other, and you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. This is head and shoulder above what we're dealing with. So this guy's probably going to go in the garbage, and this guy's going to become my new go-to. But I just want to show you, I've used this a little bit, I just want to show you how well this works. So here on the creek bank we have some sycamore saplings that have grown up. I haven't had the pigs on this side in a couple years, and hopefully we're going to change that this winter. But decent sized sycamore sapling here, probably 2 inches in diameter at the base. Die, sycamore! So here along our creek bank edge where we have multiflora and sycamore, multiflora's got a bite to it. We'll just show you how quick it blasts through these little saplings. Poke myself in the eye. And down. Two down. Three down right in my neck. Oh, that hurts. And that stuff is hateful. And even with leather, God, even with leather gloves, that stuff chews you up. All right, so I was able to whittle out a hole here. I'm gonna put a new, oh, right in the briar patch. Ooh. Tough to do with one hand. All right, let's clear out some more sycamore, stuff that doesn't have briars on it. Safe! Oh, ow! Fell right in the multiflora. Oh, that hurt. So clearly this thing is much, much better than my other saw. Really appreciate Lagom for sending that to me. They also extend a 15% discount offer code right now. I'll put that offer code down at the bottom here. And Looking for a stocking stuffer, this would be a good one. Only $29.99 before discount, so not bad at all. Going, it hurt more than I thought. Obviously, I think Lagom's probably intended use is for campers and backpackers and those type of things. We farmers, of course, take stuff and do it for other things. But this will probably end up at camp as well, because I really like the portability of this. All right, let's keep clearing. I've got darkness and rain to try to beat, so I may have to pick this up in the morning. Okay, so fast forward 2 days later, because that evening it got dark and started to rain. All day yesterday it rained, and this afternoon it finally stopped raining. So we're going to continue on here. But before I do, those of you guys who watch the channel enough will know the answer to this. So comment below if you can guess what I neglected to do before going in that night. And I'm going to give you time to try to think about that while I drive up here to the next spot where we need to do some repairs. So come along. All right, you had your 30 seconds there. Did you guess? Did you figure out? First person that leaves a comment and guesses it right, I'll give you a shout out in the next video. So, the mistake was I didn't plug the Energizer back into the boar pasture. So, for 2 days, Mongo here has been in a paddock that has absolutely no electricity to the fence. And Merritt is in heat right now and he can smell it, but he's still standing exactly where he needs to be. So kudos to good pigs, right? Let me toss him some feed and then we'll pick up where we're trying to find some other issues here. So here's my next big issue, and that is, I don't know if you can see, but there's actually my fence line goes from that post, but goes down here. It's actually pulled so tight, it's caught up in all this debris from the high water we've had. And you can see right here as well, going down there and buried. Now, that is one issue about having a pasture that crosses a stream when you get rain like we do, that it's always going to be an issue. And of course, you have to have some sort of obstruction to keep your boars or your pigs from just going under it. So I electrified that, but they haven't even attempted to go through here. And of course, now it's just an absolute mess. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clear out this spot here and then just disconnect the wire from this spot. So the fence will actually just terminate right here. And I think we'll be fine. All right, so now that fence just terminates right here, and it actually gets energized from our cross wire. We'll go show that next. I had to stand one of my pipes up. That one was completely bent over. I don't know if that was from a pig or if that was from a tree that fell over. So my transmission line comes all the way up the road here, comes around up this little poplar tree and goes across. You can see that board on the tree comes down, and that's where it actually energizes the entire boar pasture. So I've cleaned the loop out down to the termination where the creek crossing is. And I'm just going to work up. I know I've got some places here where Mongo and Dan over the time have piled up some debris. So we'll pull up there, clear that out, and then we'll ride the loop and see what's going on. And then have to go up the center line as well. Okay, I think I've discovered another issue. So you can see the white post there, that line is supposed to come down and attach to a board that's attached to this tree, this big white oak, and then come here. Well, there's the board, and there's just a bunch of debris laying on it. So we need to get this cleaned up. So this is where having a road or a trail along your fence line comes in handy. So I've got a tensioner right there on that post. That's a corner post. And you can see my line is literally laying on the ground right here. So logic would dictate, hey, just put a couple cranks on the tensioner, you're good to go. But I need to go down the line and make sure something hasn't jumped an insulator, and I make it super tight and go in there and realize, oh, I've got an insulator off and the line's going somewhere it's not supposed to, and then I've kind of messed myself over. So let's drive down the line real quick and we'll turn around and drive back. All right, so it looks good. Just looks like I've got slack in it. Some of my posts have leaned over a little bit. I see where deer have hit them a couple times. So I'm gonna drive back there and give it a crank. Don't make the mistake I did, leave this on the ground, so you have to go buy another one because you can't find it. One of these days I'll find it. You know, another reason I like using these little saws like this, especially in this situation where there's my good fence line is right in between all these autumn olive branches. If I've got my chainsaw and I'm just hopping in there ripping along and I don't see that that fence line is in there, I can't exactly see where it is, then I can obviously sever that with the chainsaw very quickly, and that would be a real bummer. So something like this that's super easy to handle can take care of it. So I believe it's now time to go energize and do a test. So I'm going to leave you guys here. I'm not going to make you go with me all the way down to the chicken coop to plug the Energizer back in. So hang out here. Talk to Mongo for a bit. Mongo, did nobody talk to you while I was gone? Not a word was said. All right. Let's give her a test. All right, that's what I'm talking about. So you may be wondering, Troy, did all of this happen just over the past month or so that you had to come do all this maintenance? And to that I say, no, it hasn't. And I may even try to argue that, well, I was waiting for the appropriate time. I really wanted to deteriorate so badly that it'd be worth doing a video over. Yeah. No, it's obviously neglect on the farmer's behalf. Usually what instigates me to double check fence is when I see a deer has blown through it or I got a pig standing in the front yard. But I need to be more diligent on that. But you can see, I hope some of these tips helped y'all, and as you're troubleshooting your electric fence, especially in the woods, some of the things you can run into. If you got to climb a lot of mountains like I do, then make sure you put a kit together, and also make sure that kit's pretty portable if you've got to walk instead of drive. And also don't forget to check out the saw here by Lagom. It's a pretty cool setup, and like I said, I've used it now and really enjoy having it in my kit. Well, appreciate everybody watching. Y'all take care.